Welcome to Meldon Law and Friends. I am Jeffrey Meldon, founder and attorney partner at Meldon Law, and we are going to have a great show today. Some very interesting topic with regard to how we help children who are in danger. And I'll tell you more in a little while, but let's turn to what's going on in the community. Gymnastic team won the SEC tournament last week. They crushed the opponents, and there was like 6 teams in the top 15 in the country that they were competing against. So it looks like we're turning our attention now to the NCAA playoffs, and eventually I think you're going to see the Gators competing against Oklahoma, Michigan, Utah, and maybe a couple others that have a good run. So let's see what happens with the Lady Gator Gymnastics. Check them out on TV. They're going to be a lot of coverage as far as what's going on in gymnastics, and that's one of my favorite sports to watch. The men's baseball team won the series against Alabama last week. I was at one of the games, and it was amazing. They had great pitching, and the Gators, beat a very good Alabama team. This week they're on the road, but the following week, Auburn's coming to town. Friday, Saturday, Sunday series, and Meldon Law is giving away plenty of goodies and tickets. You can check us out at the game. We'll have a fan fest going, as well as 2 tickets for the game. It's going to be a lot of fun. 2 tickets for the Friday night game. Go to our Facebook page, Meldon Law, and you'll find it there. What's really neat is these are great seats. They're located right on behind third base. You can see all the action, and it's a lot of fun. So come and check it out. Meldon Law Facebook page. The softball team, Lady Gators softball team, another winning team, top 5 team in the country, takes on Stetson at home on Wednesday, March 29th. And we are going to be giving away tickets for that. And also, we're going to have some giveaways for the winner. So take a look at what's going on. This is a fun time of the year. The men's basketball team is out. However, the ladies basketball team is still in the NIT tournament. Had a big win yesterday against Wake Forest, 80-63. So they're still in the hunt. Maybe they'll bring back an NIT championship. They sure looked good last night. And that's what's going on. Hartwood has got some great shows. Check them out. And, of course, we're here at Spurrier's Gridiron Grill, and this place has been hopping. It's open every day starting at 4 o'clock, and the food is great. The atmosphere is terrific. You get to see a real museum with amazing artifacts in it. So come out and visit us at Spurrier's Gridiron Grill in Celebration Point. You can see some of Coach Spurrier's helmets behind me, and that's just a small fraction of the memorabilia that's out here. However, the best part is you're going to have a really good time with a great meal, and the team out here gives first-class service. So Spurrier's Gridiron Grill at Celebration Point. Do yourself a favor and have a good time. Actually, now's a good time to come out. During football season, you had to wait weeks to get in here, but I think now is a really good time to come out and get a nice table and enjoy yourself. Celebration Point, Friday nights, they have bands playing out here, and that's a lot of fun out on the grass. The AstroTurf here they have a really nice bandstand and park, so check them out. We have a lot going on at Meldon Law. We have been in business representing folks in North Central Florida for the past 52 years now, and we're very, very proud of the team. We've been filing lawsuits left and right this week because there's some new laws being passed in Tallahassee. You're going to diminish the rights of ordinary citizens in the state of Florida. So we're going to have to sharpen the saw and see what we can do about that. But if anybody is injured in a crash, has an accident, anything where they're seriously injured, please give Meldon Law a call, 352-373-8000. We are here to serve, and we're an integral part of the North Central Florida community. I did an audit recently, and far and away we do more to give back to the community than any other law firm in this market, large or small. We are the law firm that gives back to the community, and it's our honor to do that because we've grown our business from the support that folks like you have given us. So anytime you have a need, please give us a call at Meldon Law, and we will give you first-class Ritz-Carlton service all the time. We pride ourselves on having the best team in the North Central Florida area, bar none. You'll check us out, and you'll be amazed at the client experience. So we are going to get ready to go to a break, and then we are going to be coming back for a great interview with Diana Gisonni, who is the head of the Guardian ad Litem for the 5th Judicial Circuit, which covers Marion, Lake, Sumter, Citrus, and Hernando County. We'll be back in just a few minutes on Meldon Law and Friends.
Meldon Law has been serving personal injury victims since 1971. In those days, Jeffrey Meldon's presence as an attorney in the music scene dubbed him with the nickname the Hippie Attorney. And although times have changed, two things haven't: our commitment to bettering our community by helping the injured,
Albert, are you ready to go to the game?
and our love for the Florida Gators.
If you bleed orange and blue, Meldon Law is the firm for you.
Jeffrey, what are you doing?
Well, I'm joining the band, of course. Since Meldon Law is the official law firm partner of the Florida Gators, I want to help.
Dad, we're litigators. Let's stick to helping people in the courtroom.
Well, can we still hang out and jam a little bit? At Meldon Law, we won't back down.
I was going down a one-way street and a girl that was driving her car T-boned me on my scooter. I ended up going for an MRI and discovering that I had 2 herniated discs. Coming to Cary allowed me to not have to worry about what doctor I was going to see or what physical therapist I had to go to. They say, these are the people we trust. You're going to have a great experience there, and I honestly did each time.
Call Meldon Law. Your consultation is absolutely free.
I was driving behind a lady, and very suddenly she moved out of the way. There was a log laying in the road, and when I hit my brakes, I went on top of the log. I had 2 herniated discs. I just haven't been the same since. Jeffrey Meldon fought for me all the way. Him and his team really went there for me. Throughout the whole lawsuit, he made sure that my bills was paid. It was never no whenever I called him and asked him for something.
Call Meldon Law right now.
And I was in an accident. Someone ran a red light and hit me, and I was hurt. You don't know where to turn. Luckily, I called Jeffrey. These big insurance companies, they don't want you to win. They truly don't. But Jeffrey and his firm and the people that work here, they just really fight for you. you call the law offices of Jeffrey Meldon, because you're going to need help, and they will help you.
Call Meldon Law right now.
Hey, Sammy, look who's there. Say hi.
Hey!
You again.
Meldon Law, Jeffrey speaking.
Somebody else hit us.
Here we go again. Welcome back to Meldon Law and Friends. I'm here with Diana Gisonni. Is that how you pronounce it?
Gisonni, yes, very close, very close.
Gisonni.
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 Like a G.
Oh, like
G.
a G. Okay. Gisonni.
Yes.
Okay, well, now we got it.
That's okay, it's a tough name, it's all good.
I like it. I like it. So anyhow, Diana, thank you very much for joining us today on Meldon Law and Friends. And I already told the audience that, you work with the Guardian Ad Litem program
Office.
for the 5th Judicial Circuit,
Right.
which is Marion County, Lake County, Sumter County, Citrus County, and Hernando counties.
Correct.
And I've practiced there for many, many years, almost 50 years.
Wow.
And so I've known lots of the judges and a lot of, what goes on down in that area of the
Right.
state.
Right.
And as a matter of fact, I was involved as a guardian ad litem attorney.
Really?
As a young lawyer. And,
Wow.
And I was involved in, representing young people, and they're very, very difficult, challenging cases.
Absolutely, and I think that, these children are coming from abuse and neglect and abandonment, right? So they are difficult cases. I often get folks say to me, how can you do that? How can you do that work? Doesn't it just rip your heart out, And it is difficult in the sense that you're dealing with some real tough situations that these children come from. But I always say on the flip side of that, we get to help these children find permanency, find a safe, secure home. We hope it's back with the parents. We want to see those parents be able to, rehabilitate and fix the issues that cause those children to be removed in the first place. Children, it's always in their best interest to be raised by their parents, if the parents, of course, can give them that safe, secure home. So we want to see that happen. But if that doesn't happen and they, end up maybe being adopted, we're part of that process to ensure that they come through this difficult time in their life and become, be in a safe home, be happy, and I always say not fall through the cracks. So as they go through dependency, if they need counseling, if they need tutoring, if they need any type of specialized medical care, dental care, we're advocating to make sure all of those things get done for these kids.
So here's what I want to do.
Okay.
Start from the top.
Start from the
top here, because nobody listening here, except a small percentage of
Right.
our audience, knows what Guardian Ad Litem
Right.
does and
Okay.
what their role is.
Right.
So why don't you kind of give everybody the bird's eye view of what Guardian Ad Litem is, how it works in the state of Florida.
Okay. So the Guardian Ad Litem office, it's all throughout the full state of Florida, and we're part of National CASA. CASA stands for Court Appointed Special Advocate. So every state in the country has some form of this type of office. So here in Florida, the State Guardian Ad Litem office, we provide the most vulnerable children with an adult from the community who's going to be consistent, positive presence, I'm reading our mission, in the child's life, and it's part of a multidisciplinary team. So there is an attorney, there is a child welfare professional, and hopefully a community volunteer. So we provide highest quality of community advocacy and legal representation to protect each child's legal interests. So a guardian ad litem is a volunteer from the community. You don't have to have any special background training. You don't need to be an attorney. You don't need to be a social worker. You can, anybody who wants to volunteer, 21 years or older, clean criminal background. The only two
And a good
things that you-
heart.
and an absolutely good heart and somebody who wants to help children. So essentially what a volunteer does, and I'll talk about the training, et cetera, in a few minutes, because you're not just kind of thrown in there. So the volunteer, once you're assigned to a case, we go and see these children on a monthly basis. Now, these children have been removed from their home by the Department of Children and Families. They may be in a foster home. They may be placed with a fit relative. We have a lot of grandparents or aunts or uncles that are caring for these children. So we go see the children. We spend some time, and we will spend some time with them, talk to their caregivers. If they're school-age children, we're also going to be talking to their teachers. How are they doing in school? A lot of these children don't have consistency in school, so they're behind in school. They may need tutoring and that sort of thing. If they are in counseling, we're going to speak to their counselors. Essentially, what you are as a volunteer is you are gathering information about how these children are doing, what do they need, and we are advocating for that to happen for the children. We go to court. Every 3 to 5 months, we have what's called a judicial review. We go in and we talk to the judge and we let him know this is how the child's doing, and these are our recommendations for the child's best interest. That's essentially your role as a volunteer guardian ad litem. We have staffings periodically where you'll get together with your team and discuss the case and say, you know, what do we think we need to do now? What does this child need? And ensuring that they're getting everything that they need. We have some folks that might go, I can't go to court, I can't go to meetings. I work full time. That's okay, because we have where somebody can co-guardian, where you're just doing a monthly visit, and those can be done around your work schedule.
So you'd be visiting with the child in,
yes.
in whatever home he's being placed at the time.
Correct. And an example of somebody who would co-guardian, like I live in Hernando County. I have a child that is on my caseload that's in Lake County. So there is a co-guardian in Lake County that goes and sees that child every month for me, because it's an 1.5-hour drive for me. So he actually goes and sees the child about every week for me. So that's, if somebody works full-time and they can't commit to the, going to court, because of course the judge sets that date and time, right? We can't decide when to go. So they can be a co-guardian and just do a once-a-month visit or do one-time visits. And those are in great need as well in every county in the state. So there's lots of different ways and sort of different time commitments to volunteering with us. And I think that most of our volunteers are retirees. However, we do get folks, again, that work full-time. We also get snowbirds. If you are a snowbird, you can still help. You can still volunteer with us. So there's various degrees of commitment, of time, and things like that. So there's a lot of opportunity to come in and help these kids.
How do the kids get into the system as far as, recognizing that there's abuse or neglect?
Great question. So we know that, there's a Florida Abuse Hotline. So a case starts with somebody calling that Florida Abuse Hotline. It could be a neighbor, it could be a relative, teachers, doctors, anybody who observes abuse or feels that there could be abuse or neglect of a child. They call it into the Florida Abuse Hotline. The Department of Children and Families will then send out an investigator. The investigator will go and determine, does that child or children need to be what we call sheltered? And that's when they're removed from that situation and then either placed, like I said, either in a foster home or they could be with a fit relative. So that's sort of how the process starts. Within 24 hours of that removal of the child, there's something held called a shelter hearing. That's when the department or the CPI, Child Protective Investigator, goes before the judge and says, these are the reasons why we removed this child. The judge then determines, did they have cause to do that? If so, he grants the shelter. At that hearing, that's when the guardian ad litem office is, appointed, that's the word I was trying, is appointed to the case. Okay. So at all shelter hearings in every county in the state, one of our attorneys and one of our child advocacy managers, that's the child welfare professional that's employed by our office, will go to that shelter hearing so they can gather the information about the case. And then when the judge does appoint the guardian ad litem office, that information comes back to whichever county office it goes to, and they in turn will find one of our volunteers that can take that case.
So as I understand it, you've got Children Family Services. Are they involved in some way?
Yes, absolutely. So I can only speak to the 5th Judicial Circuit, which I'm part of, but every circuit has a CBC, community-based care. So in the 5th Judicial Circuit, we have Kids Central. So they're contracted by the Department of Children and Families to carry out case management. So people might hear the term social worker, and that's what they're more familiar with, is a social worker. So each of these agencies in each county does the case management, but they call them family care managers or family case managers, and that's the term we're used to. But folks, you might not be familiar with that term, so you're familiar with a social worker. But yes, they carry on the case management. They oversee the needs of the family as a whole. They're the ones that are going to provide referrals for the parents. The parents, and I didn't mention this before, when children come into care and a case is opened, the parents are given a case plan. This is something that's drawn up by the case management. The guardian ad litem, we do have input to recommend things that we believe should be in that case plan. But essentially what the case plan is are tasks the parents have to complete to get their children back. Okay, so there's allegations. Most of our cases, vast majority, are substance abuse. So, for example, they may have in a substance abuse case, they're going to have they have to do random drug screens. They have to do a substance abuse evaluation. They have to do drug counseling, parenting classes. So these are tasks they have to complete. So those folks, those social workers or family care managers, they're the ones that are referring the parents to those services so they can get them completed.
I know that in cases that I was involved in the past, it was very interesting. I represented a couple who had a child, and there was no allegation of, beating or anything like that. The allegation was their house was a mess. I don't know what prompted the agency, the social workers, to get involved, but somebody had reported them, probably a neighbor. And I think it became apparent to me that they were not ideal parents. However, they weren't criminals.
Right.
They weren't abusing the child.
Right.
And not everybody gets a perfect home.
Exactly. And and it's interesting you bring that up, because we talk about that in training. Because what you or I, the way we might keep our home, may not be how someone else keeps their home, but that doesn't mean the child's being abused, neglected, or abandoned, right? It's interesting you bring that up, because I had a case a few years ago where the children were removed. The house was, the father was fine. That was great. He was great with the kids, but it was a health hazard for the kids. There were health hazards for the children in the home because it was so dirty, and there was like mold and things like that growing. So basically, the children were removed. They got dad some help to get the trailer all cleaned up and everything, and then the children went back.
Yeah.
So, but a messy house is not neglect or abandonment. No.
No, I mean, I'm sure this was 40 years ago. I'm trying to remember the details, but that was my argument to the judge, which was, look, the kind of neglect that was being presented to the court was minor compared to the kind of neglect that you typically find in these cases, and that the fact is that the being with the parent is paramount if it can be done.
Absolutely, and I think what I've seen, I've been with the Guardian Ad Litem office for 8.5 years now, and I work for the program. I do recruiting and training, but I'm also a certified Guardian Ad Litem. So I carry cases just like other volunteers carry cases. And what I've seen over my 8.5 years is that they're not, I don't see it as quick to just pull with something like that. If the child is safe in the home, and they can put some services into place for the parents to help them and keep the child in the home, they'll do that. And we've had cases like that where the children are still home. There's still an open dependency case, but they don't take the children out of the home, and they provide assistance to the parents to do whatever it is that they need to do to maintain a safe environment.
And I think that's a good message for everybody listening or watching, is that in the event that, you know, you see a situation, a neighbor, a relative, somebody where you go, wow, you know, I wouldn't do that. You have to look at through the eyeglasses of is the condition so bad that we should try to take the kid out of the house, or should we try to contact somebody to help provide the services needed?
Yes.
So, because I'll tell you what, I mean, I have no idea how single parents sometimes that have to work 2 jobs
I know, right?
take care of kids. I mean, I just shake my head, you know, and go, there are heroes. They're amazing, and they're out there. And sometimes, you know, you run into really challenging situations. Your boss is calling and saying, you got to be down there or else you're going to lose your job. You know, your 9 or 10-year-old kid is sitting there watching TV.
Right.
Do you leave the 9 or 10-year-old kid? You can't find a relative or a neighbor to
Right.
watch the 9 or 10-year-old kid.
Right.
And the next thing you know, Children Family Services or the police are getting a
at your
call,
door.
knocking at the door because you
Right.
left your 9 or 10-year-old kid. Now, with a
Right.
2-year-old kid, it's a little more clear cut.
Absolutely.
But with a 9 or 10-year-old kid, I
Right.
mean, I've got grandchildren that are 6 and 7, and you know, you sit them in front of a good cartoon, they'll sit there for 4 hours. Okay, and,
Right.
And you know,
Yeah.
it's like, as a matter of fact, we take care of our 90-year-old, my mother-in-law, right?
Yeah.
And she needs constant attention because,
Right.
you know, she's, you know, losing it a little here and there.
Right.
And then, you know, is it okay if I, you know, take a walk around the block and leave her alone because she
Yeah.
gets up and she could trip, she could fall, she could do this or that?
Absolutely. Yes.
Now, do
absolutely.
you deal just with children or older people
Yes,
as well?
our office is strictly with children. And we can have children that come into care, anything from newborn all the way up to, they can actually stay in extended foster care now until they're 21. If they want to stay in extended foster care, go to school, go to college, that sort of thing. And, but at that point, they're working with folks from independent living. But we'll keep, you know, we have kids from newborn all the way up to 18 years old
Yeah, I mean,
that we will represent.
you know, with it's not fair to generalize, but I imagine there are a lot of families where younger mothers, parents have kids. They're not emotionally prepared. They're not. They don't have a good job. They're not set up to succeed as a parent.
Right.
And you know, in the old days, kind of the grandparents would jump in and
Right.
raise them, right?
Yeah, right, right. I mean, what I can tell you is what I've seen, again, in my experience, is most of our cases are neglect due to substance abuse. So these children do really, they need to be removed out of that situation. The parents do need to work on getting themselves clean. I don't see a lot of, again, in my personal experience, a lot of just pulling kids out because the house is just dirty. You know, I think that's sort of changed a little bit. And we really do, I think there's a perception out there sometimes that, you know, Department of Children and Families and even us as Guardian Ad Litem office, you know, we just want to keep these kids away from the parents. And we really, I mean, us as a agency, Guardian Ad Litem, we really want to see reunification for these parents. I mean, that is in the best interest of a child. Again, the parents need to do what they, you know, to make it a safe environment for these kids. We want the best environment for these kids. But I think that, you know, over the years, I come from a nursing background. I taught college for many years, and I've been doing this for 8.5 years. This is one of the most rewarding things I've ever done in my entire life. It's probably one of the most difficult things I've ever done, but again, to me, the tough stuff gets outweighed by the good stuff we get to do for these kids.
You're helping you give kids a chance because
Future.
you know, if somebody doesn't come in and rescue kids that are in desperate situations, then they're going to follow the parents' pattern, and and they're going to wind up, you know, being, you know, prostitutes, drug dealers, you know, the whole shebang, right?
And they get they're vulnerable, you know, they get abused, and again in their teens they can get trafficked or, you know, or pulled into prostitution, things like that, because they don't have that stability. I always say to the folks that I'm recruiting as volunteers, I always tell them, you know, you don't make a difference. We don't make a difference for a day, a week, a month, or a year. We make a difference and impact the entire life of these children, long after the case is closed, because what we do, the advocacy that we do while that child is being represented by our office, will impact their entire life. And that to me, that's pretty profound, that we can make a difference in the life of a child like that.
Well, you know, early on in my career, even before I moved down to Florida and started practicing law, I worked as a juvenile probation officer for a year, a little over a year. And our job was to do an investigation, go to the home, and this was in Cleveland, Ohio, and I was covering all the neighborhoods, right, downtown, you know, wherever it occurred, and so I got very early on, I got to see, you know, some of the challenges that these kids, you know, I mean. You know, they might have gone to this is a long time ago, but they, you know, maybe they got caught with a marijuana cigarette, okay?
Right.
And you know, and then the next thing you know, they're arrested, thrown in the juvenile jail or whatever they called it, okay?
Right.
Detention center.
Detention, juvenile detention, right.
And then you're trying to figure out how to unwind the situation in a good way. They're in jail. Right. The judge doesn't want to keep them in jail if they can let them out of jail, because sometimes they're, you know, 8, 9, 10-year-old kids and stuff like that. And I'm sure you run into situations like that as well.
Yeah, I mean, I have a case right now where one of my kids is part of juvenile justice, and it's difficult, you know, it's really difficult because he's such a good kid, but he's just had a really rough go. And they act out, and this is what they've seen drugs, they've seen alcohol, they've seen domestic violence. One of the things I was thinking about as you were talking, and when I was mentioning about making a difference for these kids, I always like to tell this story to new volunteers. I had a case a few years back. As a teenage boy, he was 14 years old. And when I would talk to him, he wouldn't even look at me when I first started on my case. Wouldn't look at me, wouldn't answer questions. So I had to start asking questions that he could, like, nod his head or, you know. Took a month or so, and then he started opening up a little bit more. When I first got the case, it was December of the year I got it. By spring, he's talking to me, and he's starting to look at me. He's starting to trust me, right? We get about a week before the 4th of July, and the caregivers that he had were taking him to a friend's farm where they were going to have all these fireworks. And he asked me to come. And I was like, oh. And I already had plans for the 4th of July, and I'm like, oh no. I said, I'll tell you what. I have a barbecue to go, but I will be there for the fireworks. And he went, oh, okay. And I could tell he was like, yeah, sure you will. Because they you know, they've been let down a lot, these kids, right?
So many times.
When I showed up and I walked over, this kid jumped up and gave me the biggest hug. And that's the most and I started tearing up because that was the breakthrough moment. It took 7 months, but that was the breakthrough moment where he realized, wow, she's here for me. And she's going to be here for me. And she does what she's. And that's the kind of impact we can have with these kids. You know, they see an adult now that follows through, that says, listen, I will do this for you. I'm going to help you with this or whatever. And we follow through. And it's not, and, you know, I'm going to preface this a little bit, back up a little bit with the parents. It's not that the parents don't want to do. You know, when parents get mixed up with drugs and, you know, that substance abuse, it's not that they don't love their children. It's not that they don't want to do these things for their children, but that disease has got a hold of them, right? So, but the result is these children don't have that adult in their life that they know is going to follow through for them. So it's really neat that we get to have that kind of impact.
Yeah, I know it's you know, you see children who are vulnerable, even where there's no abuse and it doesn't get involved with court, right? You have a divorced parent and the father or mother's supposed to show up to pick up the kid, and then they're always late or they cancel, and the kid gets, you know. So you can only, you know, be disappointed so many times before you lose trust in that person. And, you know, I know, you know, I've heard enough stories from, you know, friends of mine, you know, who say that you know, the other spouse isn't doing what they are supposed to do.
We get that in these cases too, where the parents, and that, if there's one thing that drives me crazy is one parent pitting the kids against each other. Don't get me going on that one.
Yeah, right. It's like,
oh my goodness, yeah.
You're both parents, and you know, we're not going to, you know, we're not going to change that. You know, now sometimes they actually take away parental rights when the parents have been given one chance after another after another.
Right.
What is the advantage of taking away parental rights in certain situations?
Well, here's the thing. Children deserve permanency, right? We don't want these children languishing in foster care forever. The parents are given a year to complete the case plan. And that's a good amount of time. And they need that much time because some of these programs are quite lengthy. So they're given that 1 year. If we get to that 1 year mark, and here's the thing, some parents, it takes them a little bit of time for it to, and they go, oh dear, I better get on the ball here. I better get myself, you know, get these things fixed, because otherwise I'm going to lose my children. And so sometimes it might be a few months into the case, and then all of a sudden they go, okay, I'm jumping on the bandwagon, I'm getting it done. So we might get to that 1 year mark, and they just need a couple more months. So they're not done at 1 year, but they need a couple more months. Well, if they're really fully engaged and they're doing well, we're going to recommend, hey, extend that goal date, give them a couple more months and let them finish up so we can reunify this family. If we get to a 1 year mark and they've done absolutely nothing, and they're still, you know, involved in drugs or whatever the case may be, then do we want these kids languishing in foster care forever? No, they need a home, they need permanency. So, so the Department of Children, or CLS, which is Children's Legal Services, they will recommend, move towards a recommendation of termination of parental rights and adoption. And we as a guardian at Litem office, generally that would be our recommendation as well, because again, we want these kids to have permanency.
So you can be in a foster home. I've heard of foster parents that eventually adopt kids, right?
Some do, yes. Some do eventually adopt the children that are in their care. Sometimes they may go to a family member. I actually just had a case closed with a family member, a newborn baby that was born, and the mother actually gave up her rights, and it was another drug abuse case, but had relatives up north, and we just had the adoption last week, and it's a wonderful thing when they have permanency. So sometimes it's relatives that will adopt the children.
So it's very interesting because the court really bends over backwards to come up with the right solution as a volunteer, and that's one of the things we want to encourage people to do, to volunteer and respond. You really have an important role, and I think one of the reasons is that whatever time you have, you can give additional insight. The social worker is out there, but they may have dozens and dozens or hundreds of cases, and they're trying to evaluate the situation in a very short period of time. The judge, you know, may be hearing the case for 8 minutes or 9 minutes and trying to come up with the right answer based on the recommendations. You know, you've got the, you know, guardian ad litem who's put together a plan, and you know, the parents typically, you know, don't succeed right away.
Sometimes, sometimes it takes a little while for them for that sort of that rock bottom moment, you know, like they talk about when people hit rock bottom, and that's their turning point. And yeah, sometimes we have parents, they just jump on board right away, and they're working their case plan. Others, taken a little bit of time, others that don't at all.
Yeah.
But what's important, and when you were talking there, what's important to talk about is, I have folks that say, well, I'm a layman. I'm not a professional. Is a judge really going to pay attention to me? Absolutely they do. A volunteer is there for no other reason. They've got no ulterior motive. You're not being paid to be there, right? They are there because they want to help children.
And they
So-
also, volunteers may have the time, you're talking
Yes.
about snowbirds or
Yes.
retirees or
Right.
people who are, have the availability of time and want to do something meaningful, right?
Absolutely.
What could be more meaningful than helping save a child's life?
Right, right. And what I want to, before our time's up, I want to make sure that folks know, you're not just kind of thrown out there. We do have a very extensive training program. Most of it is done online at your pace, so you don't have to be coming into a classroom, so you can work that around your schedule as well. We have some live webinars that you do, and then we have the last phase of our training is a fieldwork phase, and our volunteers will actually get paired with a mentor. So it's one of our experienced volunteers. They'll work with them for the first couple months on their case. So there's a very good training program, so I don't want anyone to feel intimidated. They go, oh my goodness, I can't, I don't know anything about this. We've got a great training program, a great support system. We have, as I mentioned, you work with a team. So you've got a child advocacy manager, that's your child welfare professional. You've got an attorney that's assigned to the case as well. So it's team advocacy. And so our volunteers are really well supported as they work a case.
Is it safe for them to go out and visit?
Absolutely, yes, absolutely. And if they ever don't feel safe going to a certain area, they can always have another volunteer go with them. I have had one time where there was an area I wasn't too sure of, and I contacted the case manager. I said, hey, when are you going to do your visit? And I went with her, and we did it together. So, but yeah, I mean, I think it's very safe. We just do such great work with these children, and we're just in desperate need all over the state for guardians ad litem.
So wherever you are, reach out to your guardian ad litem. Just Google it. I'm sure
Well,
you
they can go to
find
guardianadlitem.org is the state website, guardianadlitem.org, and you can fill out a form, put your county in there, and it'll go to that county's recruiter, and they'll be in touch and be working with you from there.
So again, you don't have to have any experience. Over 21, a clean record.
Right, and just a passion for helping kids.
Passion for helping kids.
Yeah.
So if somebody is living in, say, Marion County, and they say, oh, I'm interested in this program, I'd like to help turn some kids' life around. Is there a phone number to call, or just how's that?
The best thing to do is to go to the guardianadlitem.org. Right, and there's a way to get involved. It says get involved. You fill out a form. You give us your name, your phone number, your email address, and then one of the recruiters will be in touch with you.
So it's easy.
It's super easy, and we can provide more in-depth information and the needs. I mean, we've really got a great need in Marion County and here in Alachua County, all throughout the state. So it's really easy to get the information, and then you decide if it's a fit for you.